Signs of the drought in the western United States are everywhere, from the dry riverbeds to the depleted reservoirs, canals, and fallow fields. And western farmers are hurting.
This is a fallow field where there's not enough water to plant. No water, so that's the rice dying.
Right now, the U.S. is in year 2 of a drought that encompasses almost the entirety of the American West.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to interrupt. This is a Wall Street Journal YouTube video. And you will, what annoys me most about this video is there's no mention of climate change and the West getting hotter and drier for the next who knows how many, like 100 years. I mean, it's the climate is changing. It's changing permanently, and they don't mention the word climate change or global warming. Neither word. They just say, well, it's a hot, very dry year this year. And they've said 2 years of drought. No, well, it may be like more 20 years of drought, the last 20 years. But it's okay. The Wall Street Journal doesn't want to use those very controversial words.
And though dry periods are part of a natural water cycle in the West, climate scientists are noticing changes that are making it easier for the region to fall into drought. This is causing farmers to go to greater lengths to access their water, which can create a ripple effect in neighboring rural communities. Water moves in the West in the same cycle as the rest of the world. First, precipitation falls, then the water seeps into the ground or becomes runoff that flows into rivers and streams. It's either sucked up by plants or humans or evaporates back into the atmosphere, starting the process all over again. But what's unique about the West is where and how the precipitation falls. Experts say it often comes in the form of a few big storms, traversing the region and falling as snow in the mountains, like in the Rockies or California's Sierra Nevada. The snowpack it creates serves as a natural storage, saving water until the spring and summer when it thaws, feeding the rivers and reservoirs that serve lower-lying farms and cities.
Some of these extreme rain events can really make or break drought conditions for a given winter.
Climate scientist Samantha Stevenson says some causes of a drought can occur at 2 points in the water cycle. The first is more precipitation falling as rain instead of snow.
If you're getting the same amount of moisture added to the land surface, but more of that is ending up falling as rain, then it's going to just run off into the river very quickly and be further downstream or maybe even out of the area where you need it by the time summer comes around.
The second reason is increased evaporation from the land, rivers, and lakes, making everything very dry.
We've all seen this during dry summers, right? You water your lawn and then it disappears within a couple hours. It's the same thing, but on a larger scale.
Experts say higher temperatures have led to both occurring this year, resulting in the current drought being so severe and so widespread. They cautioned it might be a sign of similar droughts to come.
What we can say is that we expect that these temperature-driven trends are going to cause droughts to, in general, become larger.
Right now, the drought is very large and very dry. Snowpack levels in California have dropped to 4% of normal this year, and many of the West's largest reservoirs have sunk below half of their capacities. The effects are most acutely felt by farms in nearby communities, where over 90% of the water goes in many western states. California accounts for a quarter of all food grown in the U.S., including 40% of fruits, nuts, and other table foods. That's because they can thrive in the region's semi-arid climate. The water is put to good use, says Doug Parker, the director of the California Institute for Water Resources.
So the dry season is sort of a curse because we don't have water during that season. But then again, it's a blessing because it's the only way we could actually grow some of those kinds of crops.
Jamie Trainham and her husband manage over 1,200 acres of farmland in Colusa County.
My husband and I have been farming for 27 years. We farm about 1,100 acres of rice, right around 200 acres of walnuts, 60 acres of row crop, and then we run 250 head of mother cows. We ended up having to fallow right around 500 acres of rice. We didn't have much choice. There's nothing. It's just dirt and some, dry weeds, basically. If there's not water for it, you can't grow it.
Most of Trainham's water originates 120 miles away in Shasta Lake and makes its way to her farm via a series of canals and pipelines. But the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which manages much of this infrastructure and provides 1/5 of Western farmers with irrigation water, has cut the water allocations for many to zero this year.
When there's less water, you spend 10 times more of your own time dealing with paperwork, calculations, and managing what little water you have. It's very, very stressful and nerve-wracking because it's like putting a puzzle together when you don't even know what all the pieces are.
During the 2014-2015 drought, total farm-related losses in California totaled $5 billion, and 20,000 farm hands lost their jobs.
Imagine if you have to basically cut back 20% of your acreage, that's like taking a 20% pay cut to somebody who works in a regular job, right? So it is painful for those farmers.
Experts say the region's agricultural sector is resilient, and it's too early to tell what effects this drought will have on food supplies and prices. With limited options, Trainham has turned to pumping groundwater to make ends meet.
Right now, in the rice that we do have, we really don't have any other source of water but our well water. If you don't have a well and you're relying on surface water, years like this prove the point that you better rethink what you're planting or you better have a backup plan.
But groundwater isn't as easily replenished as surface water, and there are concerns that California farms run the risk of overdrawing, causing wells to run dry.
We don't have a good system where we regulate that groundwater. And so we tend to have a system where we draw more and we put back less. And as anybody knows, you can't continually take money out of your bank account if you never put something back in.
Nearby rural communities also rely on this groundwater for their homes. During the last drought, hundreds of California households, many in the Central Valley, reported water shortages. There are other consequences as well. Overpumping has been linked to increased levels of arsenic in parts of the Central Valley's groundwater. It also can cause changes in land subsidence, meaning the ground can sink, potentially damaging roads, homes, and bridges.
I'm concerned about the use of the well water, just like everybody is. Nobody wants their well to go dry. Nobody wants subsidence. We suffer and feel it first, but that doesn't make it any less of a struggle to somebody living in a city where their well goes dry and they have no drinking water.
During the last drought, California passed laws to better manage groundwater usage.
We're in the early parts of figuring out how to do that management of it. We really don't have all those mechanisms in place yet. So I expect us to overuse groundwater by quite a bit during this drought.
Experts expect the drought will continue to worsen into the summer and early fall as temperatures rise even more, which could cause a tighter squeeze on resources and tougher decisions to be made about how the West gets its water.
what a mess. What an absolute mess. I mean, each time you say, oh, this is different than it was. What's it going to be like in October? What's it going to be like next April?
There isn't a lot about the Colorado River that Jack Schmidt doesn't know. He's been making research trips on it for decades. But he's never seen the river this low.
Look at this.
Yeah, you used to be able to back a truck in here right into the water.
Is this new this year, essentially?
Yeah, it's happened within the past 6 months.
I am stunned by how horrible this is.
The Colorado is the lifeline of the American Southwest. It runs nearly 1,500 miles, supplying water and electricity to 7 states and Mexico. Some 40 million people rely on its resources. But 20 years of drought, made worse by climate change, have brought things to a moment of crisis. This part of the river was once the upper end of Lake Powell, one of the 2 main reservoirs.
Lake Powell filled for the first time in 1980. That concrete ramp was filled with houseboats, people backing in motorboats, people water skiing, and now look at that. Essentially, 1999-2000 was the last time the water was up at the base of that concrete ramp. And now it's lower than it's ever been since it filled.
It's not only Powell. Lake Mead, the river's other major reservoir, above the Hoover Dam, is only about a third full. Unless things change, which they won't. This month, officials will declare a Tier 1 shortage for the first time ever. That means next year, major cutbacks are coming, starting with Arizona farmers. When that happens, a lot of farms will look like Nancy Kaywood's. She relies on water from another river, a tributary to the Colorado. But it got so low, she was totally cut off in April. So this out here, just looking at this, I mean, is this...
Take a look.
Is this dead now?
Well, we don't think it's going to green back up.
What were you growing here?
Alfalfa.
Uh-huh.
See the seed lines?
Uh-huh.
And how it's just all dead. Our dam has no water. We have no water, period. So this is my granddad, and he bought the farm in about 1930, and here he's in the 40s, and he's listing a field getting ready to plant cotton.
Amazing photo.
It's about the only picture I have of him on the farm. And this is our family. This is out in a cotton field. It's really hot. Everybody's squinting. It was in August.
What I'm struck by looking at this picture, you said it's August, but you're standing in a bright green field.
Beautiful green, and it's right over where that dead alfalfa is. Isn't that gorgeous? And that was taken in 2019.
I feel like we've been talking about this moment as a future thing for a long time. This idea that there's going to be a time when we have to reduce water usage. We have to pay attention to that. But being out here, it feels like that moment's here already.
It's here. Here we are.
And there's no turning back.
No. Right now, the population is not going to feel affected. Farmers are going to feel it.
Does that create a little bit of a divide where farmers are in this place where you're
Well, it
You're
doesn't seem
taking the
fair
bro-
to me.
yeah.
You know, yeah, I think it does. There's a big push for land development here, encouraging industry to come in here, new businesses, which means more homes. And as that happens, they're going to be using water just like we are.
The decisions over who loses water first were largely made back in 2019 as part of a drought contingency agreement between the states that use the river. It took 6 years to work out and was set to expire in 7. That means negotiators are already starting to worry about how they'll do it all again, with many states still trying to build new pipelines and developments, and even less water to go around. Tom Bushatsky is responsible for making Arizona's case and navigating all of these tensions.
Starting with the drought contingency plan discussions in 2018 and 2019, we have been talking about climate change and the hotter and drier future, really putting that point out there to the water users that we have to be prepared for that. And I think a lot of what's going on with the Colorado River is the hotter, drier future is already here, and it might get a little bit worse.
Is it fair that farmers who ostensibly are doing something that's sort of essential, growing food for us to live, that they're having to cut back when other people are watering their lawns and not having to limit their shower length?
That is a debate that has been growing. But the way the legal priority system works for water supplies, the farmers have that lower priority than the cities.
Do you think as this gets harder over the coming years that the interstate negotiations are going to get trickier?
So the harder it is in your state, the harder it will be between the states. So the answer is clearly yes to that question. It remains to be seen what will happen. I know that we collectively will negotiate something. We will. What it's going to be, I don't know.
This is a full 3 months of food without needing any refrigeration or special storage. And you're looking at
When it's going to be, I don't know, but failure is not an option. It isn't. Because otherwise, Mother Nature's going to take over.
There are no easy answers for this, are there?
There are not. And in water, there never are.
Do you think we're at a critical point?
I think we're at a point where the old ways will not suit us going forward. So we are at a political critical point where we need to really have hard-nosed talks about where is the best place to use water to do the best good for human society. We have lived with the imagination that there is more water to develop, and so we can increase development and it won't hurt anybody. But it is a zero-sum game. There's not any more extra water to develop.
Hoover Dam was the first major dam of its kind that was built, and at the time it was built, it was the largest in the world. It impounded Lake Mead, and downstream agriculture was the primary reason that it was built. We just recently passed a historic low in Lake Mead. It's now at the lowest level that it's been since it filled in the 1930s. In 2000, Lake Mead was at about 95%, which was about 15 feet below that walkway right there.
Just 20 so years ago?
2000.
Wow, that's kind of impossible to picture right now, standing here.
It's dramatic.
Do you expect it'll get back to that point?
We need at least 4 or more years of consecutive good runoff into the upper basin, good snowpack, for the reservoirs to be able to rebound completely.
Can you talk me through what these structures are?
These are intake towers. Water goes in, spins a turbine, which spins a generator and creates hydropower, which goes out to all of these power lines that you see.
That's how Las Vegas is lit up at night.
Las Vegas is lit up at night, and Arizona and California also receive power from Hoover Dam.
I'm waiting to feel my ears pop.
We produce our own power. These are little generators. There's one on the Nevada side too, and this is the power for the dam itself. The way it works, as the reservoir level is high, there's more pressure pushing the water in to the pipes to the turbines. As it lowers, there's less pressure.
Is there a lower limit to how little water there can be in here for them to still work?
Elevation 950 is the lowest that we'd be able to go and still produce hydropower.
The water level at Lake Mead is currently around 1,067 feet. So if the water level gets below 950, this dam will no longer really function as a generator of power.
That is true, but we don't anticipate that happening. Right.
Is it a little despairing for you to come out and see?
It's concerning. I mean, all of us are concerned, but I also have a lot of faith in the people that are working on the problem.
It's one of the biggest things you can do to help fix the climate crisis, and I'm doing it right now. Just talk about it. 2 in 3 Americans want to know more about climate change, but only 1 in 5 of us ever hear anyone else talking about it who they know. And 7 out of every 10 Americans rarely or never talk about it with their families. Sociologists call this a spiral of silence, and a lot of people are silent. That means all Americans, red and blue, conservative or liberal. So that's why the single most important thing that any of us can do is talk about it. Talk about it with friends. Talk about it with family. Even talk about it with strangers. A few years ago, my husband and I met with a friend who's a cotton farmer in West Texas. He didn't believe in climate change at all, but he's a smart guy, and I felt that if he just knew the basic facts, he might come around.
I'm not trying to be argumentative for the sake of being argumentative, but 1,500 years ago, scientists were sure that the Earth was the center of the universe, and 500 years ago, we were sure the Earth was flat, so the information, because people collectively agree, doesn't necessarily, I'm looking at it from a business standpoint, and I'm not for burning the planet up or trashing it at the same time.
You just want more evidence.
I want more evidence, and I want to be told the truth.
There's been a concerted effort to make people believe that there's a huge debate in the science.
And then it's 50-50.
Exactly. So just kind of ballpark, what percentage would you think is yes versus no, humans versus not humans?
I don't know. I would say probably 70-30 in favor of climate heating.
97.
Based on 97%, then I have no problem saying, okay, this is happening to one degree or another. Again, that's not, I'm not wanting to question it my whole life. I get tired of it too.
Did you catch that? In one conversation, just one, he did almost a complete 180. Now, of course, it's not always as simple as that. Some conversations might take days, weeks, or even years, but it shows the power of simply talking about climate. It is now scientifically proven that discussing climate facts with your friends and family creates a positive feedback loop. It engages us to learn more about how climate change affects us and the things we already care about, and that encourages even further discussion. And because it's coming from you, your close friends and family could be more receptive than when the same message comes from someone they don't know. Like me.
So please join me in welcoming Dr. Catherine Heyhoe to the podium.
When I look at the information that we get from the planet, I look at it as God's creation speaking to us. And in this case, there's no question that God's creation is telling us that it is running a fever. One of the most incredible things about our planet is something that we see every day and we probably don't ever notice. It's our atmosphere. Just like a blanket keeps us warm by trapping our body heat, in the same way, our atmosphere keeps us 60 degrees warmer than we would be with no atmosphere. If we didn't have these little things of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, we'd be a frozen ball of ice. What's happening is we have this natural greenhouse effect here with this natural atmosphere, and we are adding an extra layer to it that was never intended to be there. But I'm just one person. Imagine if everyone talked to their friends and family and coworkers about climate change. We'd see a groundswell across the entire country. And you don't have to be a scientist to talk about it. At this point, we don't need more data and facts from the science. Instead, we need to start from the heart. Start with the rational hope that we can create a better future that supports a thriving planet for us all. Talk about why this matters to you, your life, and all life. Do it this week. Have a conversation. Begin that conversation with something that you share. Then connect the dots to why you would both care. And don't stop without bringing up a positive, viable solution that the person you're talking to can get on board with. After thousands of conversations over the past decade, I truly believe that just about every single person on this planet already has the values they need to care about a changing climate. They just haven't connected the dots. And that's what talking can do.
Oh, yeah, let me just interrupt this little video here. I just want to mention this video was recorded in 2019. in California. And in 2019, they had what, 2 years of drought in 2018, 2019 was drought in California. Before this year's or 2021's period of drought. And that's been end of 2020 and then 2021. So you could easily say that they've been in a drought in California at least for 20 years have been very dry, very dry to drought. And the other thing that the Wall Street Journal skips over kind of is when you have 20 years of drought, it means that people are pumping, they're using wells. And what's happened in California is people have been using wells and pumping the wells out for the last 30 years. And they've been overusing the wells, or the groundwater, which is what wells, the water that wells pump up is groundwater. They've been overusing those, and there's no rain, so there's no groundwater, there's no surface water, there's no snow, there's no rain. I mean, here's the last. This is just not feasible at this point. But the only way they could get water now is to desalinate the ocean water, and that's super expensive, super. So this is what we call climate change, global warming, because the hotter it is, the more water evaporates, the less snow there is, right? It causes all kinds of problems. I mean, it's hotter, there's more, the vegetation dries out quicker, there's more wildfires, et cetera, et cetera. So California now, there's no other, they're already destroying or leaving fields fallow. And they're destroying some of the tree crops because those use up a lot of water. But don't call it climate change, don't call it global warming, don't say that it's caused by CO2 in the atmosphere, because that would offend Wall Street Journal people and the oil companies. Yes.
Hello, welcome to Taco Rico. Can I get your order?
Some water to start with.
Water?
And
okay.
Maybe it's like a big
Do I know you from somewhere?
I don't know, do you?
Yeah, I think so. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm
Jill?
not there.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
How are you?
Yeah, so nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. What's your name?
I'm Griselda.
Griselda.
I'm such a fan.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I love your movies.
Oh, thanks a lot.
What are you doing here, Pueblo?
I heard about the drought. I
Oh.
wanted to check it out. I mean, I hear there's some places they don't even have like water in the
No
tanks.
water at all. They have tanks and they have to fill them up.
And for how long has it been like this?
About 3 years.
No, 3 years?
3 years. And it's getting really bad right now. Hopefully it rains this year. I live in a ranch down Tervera. We're not rich. We don't have too much money. Our ranch is really dry right now. Yeah. You want to go see how it is?
I would love to. That's very generous.
Yeah. So I'll go get your water.
Okay.
And I'll be back.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just have gold instead of water. It seems like it's easier.
Sarah Steiner's with me on the phone. She's following the story from California.
What is telling about how bad this drought is that there is a community in East Porterville that has no water in their home. About 5,000 people have no water running in their homes in America. So there's a lot of concern going on now. And this isn't just the worst drought in 100 years, which has been talked about over and over and over again. A new study said this is the worst drought in 1,200 years.
Hey, Don, welcome. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Don. Pleasure to meet you, too. Let's go take a look at things. Okay. This canal here has been dry for going on almost 3 years with no water.
Wow, really?
This is where we get our irrigation water when it's available. And that water comes from the snowpack and the rains that get collected in the reservoirs east of here. If there's water here, this field that we're looking at that has nothing in it would have been planted corn. Without that water, which has been dry for going on almost 3 years, we didn't plant this field this year.
And you're in a similar situation that all of your neighbors are in too, where they're having to make similar decisions based on the lack of water?
This entire valley right now has to make those kind of same decisions.
What percentage of the food in the world comes from this area?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I know when you look at the almonds and pistachios, they're in the 95% and up of the world.
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
Milk in this area is about 9% of the United States. I have friends in the Midwest that when they talk about the California drought, they see it in their food prices at the store.
Well, so then I guess my question is then, if this has been this condition for 3 years, where do you get the water from?
The only place we can get water from is the underground. And so you're limited by that, and you're limited by the future. You know, it used to be in 40 years ago, if you went down 60 feet, you would hit water. I drilled a well earlier this year when I went 800 feet. It cost $150,000. Put a new pump pressure system in it. You know, at a cost of $80,000 on top of that.
So almost $250,000. I mean, that's not something that everyone can easily afford, right?
You know, that's an investment that you can't avoid. Water is the lifeblood. You have to have it. You cannot work around it without it.
What's the worst case scenario? I mean, where are we looking if this continues 3, 4, 5 years? I mean, what are the options?
If we have 2 more years of this same thing with no water, that's going to be tough. I don't want to think about it. We'll always be able to irrigate something, but if it's only 10%, then basically 90% of my employees are going to be gone. I don't want to think about having to let people go.
This is important to the world, right? I mean, what are we looking at?
If we were to lose this food supply here, I think we have a real national security problem. California wasn't providing food to the United States. I think we'd be in some real trouble.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey. How you doing? Dom.
How you doing? Adam.
Nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet you too.
Good to see you again. Yeah.
Thanks for coming to see how things are over here.
Yeah.
A lot different.
Yeah, a lot different.
Yeah. 3 years back, it was green and nice.
Just 3 years back?
3 years.
Wow. Can you show me around?
Oh yeah, let's go. I'll show you over here.
Okay.
Yeah, over here it's a lot drier. You'll see.
Yeah. So you've been here 3 years?
3 years.
Yeah.
Well, see, like the first year was regular year, but the second year is horrible. The third year, oh, you don't want to know about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is what we have left of the third year. And now, if this year doesn't rain, then we're not gonna do anything because it's just a waste of work, a waste of money that we don't have, and it's just hard for everybody. Like in our Hispanic community, it's like a dream having a little farm. You gotta live here to know what's happening. If you don't live here, you don't know what's happening. If you talk to people like that come from other places and you tell them, they're all like, yeah, you're crazy. How you gonna be suffering that much? Well, you do.
It's the reality.
It's the reality.
I imagine.
Oh yeah, because you came over here like a dream.
Yeah.
And then
Turn
like
into a
me,
nightmare.
oh yeah.
If it's not too personal, the question, how much do you spend on water just monthly? What is your water bill?
The highest bill I pay per month was $12,000.
What?
12,000.
$12,000.
This is the land of hope. Why? Because you're always hoping that it's gonna be better, and you could pass 50 years, 100 years, and you're still hoping that it's gonna come, and you're dying hoping. Sometimes you see in the news, oh, it's gonna rain pretty good. Oh, you start working your land and trying to plant your stuff. Nothing. It was a hope. You keep on going. And you see the news again the next day. Oh, it's gonna rain next week. Another hope. It's gonna come, it's gonna come.
You start hating weatherman, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but see, it's just like that. It's just an everyday life here. And we have to get to a point that either keep on going, keep trying, or just let it go. You know, but that's a real tough situation.
You want to push that decision
as
far down.
As far as you can. It's not because of me or because of somebody else. It's because of somebody that you can now fight against it. Mother Nature. You cannot fight against her.
Do you ever talk about, or does it even matter to you guys, the issue of climate change, or why it's happening, or how it's happening?
Well, you see in the news, you see everywhere that this is changing for bad, not for good. Because back then, nothing used to be that hot. We used to have rain. We used to have snow. So we're doing something wrong, and not just me or you, everybody.
Why have another planet to go to? Yeah.
No, that's it. If we get this one over with, then we're done.
Hey, Don Cheadle. Hey, I'm Jay. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Jay. So, having seen what's happening in the Central Valley with these farmers, is there any hope on the horizon for them?
We're using up that groundwater at such a rapid clip that I think the future of agriculture in California is really at risk. These are some images that come from the GRACE mission, and they show the progressive drying of California. And so you can see pretty clearly we're going from this green, sort of like the traffic signal color scheme, green, everything's okay, to yellow, like, whoa, we better be careful, and red, we're in big trouble. Over the last few years, California's lost, something like 4 trillion gallons of water per year.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, 4 trillion with a T. That water is not going to be replaced. A lot of it comes from groundwater use that we use to support agriculture.
Right. So our aquifers are depleted.
The aquifers are getting depleted at a rapid clip. It's pretty scary. It is that severe.
I mean, it's, my jaw's on the ground. It's not an overstatement to say this is a crisis that we
It's a huge crisis. Yeah.
And why isn't the alarm bell being rung louder?
Part of the problem that we have is that we can still turn on the tap. Even though the crisis is as bad as it is, you can still turn on the tap.
Well, not everywhere in California, right?
I know, right. But unless that happens to you, right, maybe that's what it takes, that you have to turn on your tap, and you literally hear the giant siphon sound. You can see the decline in the last few years. Groundwater in the Colorado River Basin has been disappearing at a rate of 6 or 7 to 1 compared to the losses in Lake Powell and Lake Mead. And no one is paying attention, and no one is talking about it. And this threatens the water security of the entire western United States. It's going to get worse, okay? I mean, this is really scary stuff, exactly. And I am getting to the point where I'm not sleeping well at night.
Can you tie this into climate change?
Absolutely. What we're finding is that the dry areas of the world are actually getting drier, just like the climate models and the IPCC has been suggesting, and the wet areas are getting wetter. So this is like that US map that we just looked at. So now we're looking at the whole world. And we're looking at the trends in total freshwater availability all over the world. The blues are gaining, the reds are losing. Okay? The biggest losers are Greenland and Antarctica. The ice sheets are melting away, contributing to sea level rise, and we did a study that came out in June that showed that over half of the 37 largest aquifers in the world are past sustainability tipping points, meaning we use more than is being replenished each year. And of those, 13 are severely, severely stressed. I mean, this is where we grow all our food, by the way.
I mean, this is insane. This is at a level where when you talk about crimes against humanity, you know, these crises where world leaders aren't stepping up to address this. I mean, how is this? I mean, how is this defensible?
It's not. It's absolutely not.
I mean, is this going to potentially be? I mean, I know we can only look so far, but are we talking about like a great migration again? I mean, is man going to have to completely pick up and move to places where?
I think it's not just about water. So the answer is, I think yes. I mean, we're not super good at adapting. If you had to make a dystopian movie of the future, that would be it.
Whenever an extreme weather event happens, one of the first questions everyone wants to know is, was this latest hurricane caused by global warming or not? If you asked 100 climate scientists, nearly every one of us would agree that a given hurricane did not occur because of climate change, but it could be exacerbated by it in a few different ways. First, in a warmer world, there's more water vapor available for storms to sweep up and dump on us, and hurricanes are very big storms. We have already seen increases in heavy precipitation around the world as the planet has warmed. This is one of the symptoms of climate change that has been definitely fingerprinted or attributed to human-induced change. It's estimated that almost 40% of the rainfall that fell during Hurricane Harvey would not have occurred if the same hurricane had happened hundreds of years ago when the world was not as warm as today. Nearly every scientific study agrees that as the world warms, the amount of rainfall associated with hurricanes will increase on average. Second, as the world warms, the seas are rising. As land-based ice melts and warm ocean water expands. This increases the risks associated with storm surges. With more water behind them, they can be more powerful. And with higher sea level, more coastal areas will be flooded during a given storm on average than would have been 50 or 100 years ago. And then we have the fact that hurricanes get their energy from warm ocean water. And over 93% of the extra heat being trapped inside the climate system by this blanket of heat-trapping gases we're wrapping around the Earth, over 93% of that heat is going where? Into the ocean. There's other factors in play, but all else being equal, warmer oceans will increase the energy available to hurricanes, so they can intensify faster as they pass over areas with unusually warm water. That's why it's likely that we will see more intense hurricanes in the future. Not only that, but we now know too that hurricanes are getting bigger and they're also getting slower as the planet warms. So they can cover greater area and they can sit over us for longer and dump more rain on us today than they could before. So how will the number of hurricanes and other tropical cyclones and typhoons change in the future? What we know right now suggests that we might not see any increases in the total number of hurricanes in the future, but the storms we will see will most likely be fiercer ones. Here's the bottom line. Climate change doesn't cause most hurricanes or floods or even wildfires, but it does make them stronger and more devastating. So if we only use our experience with past disasters to inform future preparation, we will be dangerously underestimating coastal flooding, rainfall, and even the average strength of the hurricanes that come our way. To protect ourselves from weather and climate disasters, we need to be looking to the future, not the past.
Okay, I want to emphasize again that that Don Cheadle, that video was recorded in 2019 in California. So they were having a drought then, and they were talking about there's no groundwater, you can't dig wells, there's no surface water. So canals and moving water around, they've maxed that out. So that's it. There is no more water, and they have to get rain and snow. But the snow is the least likely they're going to get. But at least rain would help. But this is a huge problem. So that's going to wipe out rice farmers. It's going to wipe out cotton farmers. By the way, that cotton farmer in that other clip, cotton uses a lot of water. They have to irrigate. Almonds use a lot of water. Pistachios use a lot of water. Asparagus use a lot of water. I'm just learning all this stuff about what crops use a lot of water. That's all going to go. It's gone. The farmers are abandoning or leaving their fields unplanted and unirrigated. They don't have, this is a permanent change. You're going to have to cut back on everything. And then they're going to have to ration water. Wall Street Journal didn't mention that. They're going to ration water, and it's not just going to be for the farmers. The farmers are already being cut, okay, because they use 80% of the water. Now they're doing residential rationing and saying you can't do your lawn, you can't run your shower, you can't water your lawn, whatever. It's rationing. Okay, I have to interrupt again. Well, actually, this is sort of a little editorial. The idea that global warming was invented by Al Gore and the Democrats is just utterly ludicrous. But that's what WBCK says, and that's what David Rank says, and that's what Tim Collins thinks. And so this is one of my favorite clips here. I don't know where, I got this somewhere on the internet. I don't know where. I can't even remember. I got it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can't remember. And this is a clipping from a newspaper in 1912. 1912. Way before Al Gore, and way before AOC, and way before George Soros. What are the other villains? I've got a lot of them there. I don't even know if this is, I'm assuming this is it might be a British or Indian. Maybe it's an Indian publication. I don't know, there's strange names, but it's in English. And Rodnan Amata Times, I don't know. So it says Science News and Notes, coal consumption affecting climate. The furnaces of the world are now burning about, is it 2 billion? 2 billion tons of coal a year. 2 billion, it's not million, it's 2 billion tons of coal a year. That was in 1912 when we had what, a billion people, 2 billion. Now we have 7 or 8 or 8 billion. So they burn 2 billion tons of coal a year. When this is burned, uniting with oxygen, making CO2, it adds about 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere yearly. Yearly. 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide yearly. Okay, right. Okay, reading on. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth and to raise its temperature. This is from 1912, and they knew back then that carbon dioxide was a greenhouse gas. So let's go to the next sentence. The effect may be considerable in a few centuries. So actually, this article was very dead on. The only thing you could criticize, and how would they know this back then, is that the growth in population, and we had the car and the jet had hardly been invented. Had the jet been invented back? No, the jet had not even been invented. They were using propeller planes, and who would have guessed, or who would have known, that you'd have cars everywhere, and you'd have billions of people, and then you'd have jet planes, and everyone flying instead of driving. This travel is just, it was unheard of to travel the distances we travel now. So, did I get everything? Yeah, the effect may be considerable in a few centuries. No, it's the effect is at the end of the century, in 2000, as we started feeling the effects very severely. So, I was in 1912, before George Soros, before Al Gore, AOC, George Soros. Who am I missing? The communists? Before the communists? Before China? China? Yeah, so, okay. Hey, thanks, WBCK, for lying these so many years. Okay, let's go back to the drought monitor map. And this is from, what? Oh, gosh, a month and a half ago. So this is a little dated, but it's still pretty much the same. For the West, it certainly. The West is pretty much the same. The only differences would be Wisconsin and Michigan are no longer in a moderate drought because we get some rain, But North Dakota, South Dakota is still in drought. I think Montana is still in drought. Wyoming is in drought. So here I'm gonna poke at WBCK, Tim Collins, and David Rankowitz Rank. Yeah. So is your response to this is it's only temporary. It's only going to be for a year. The scientists are lying. Who's going to be lying? Okay, let's see. The scientists are going to be lying. The drought monitor map is going to be lying. The weather people are going to be lying. NASA is going to be lying. NOAA's going to be lying. The list of lying people is enormous. So, and the drought monitor map is put up by, I think, is it University of Kansas? I'm not sure who generates the drought monitor map. But there are a bunch of criteria. There's a bunch of indicators they go through. They do soil moisture and I don't know what all, the rain that week, or all kinds of precipitation. I think they may even do groundwater. I don't know. But and so this is now what they're saying out west is we've had drought or near drought conditions for the last 20 years. And so you tell me, WBCK people, and Trump, there's no groundwater. They pumped the groundwater out of California. That wasn't regulated. Groundwater was not regulated. So they pumped it out. That's gone. They don't have any rainfall. The reservoirs are all dry. I'll do one, maybe my last segment will be a terribly low, terribly hot, terribly dry reservoir in California. And you tell me This is just a little thing. It's no big deal. It's going to go away. It'll go away. So the farmers will be hurt. There'll be less food. Water will be rationed. No big deal, right? Water will be rationed. Farmers will go out of business. There'll be farmers that will go out of business. I mean, the economy will take a big hit. We'll have less food. Maybe food prices will go up. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an economist. So you guys can say, and then there'll be wildfires. I missed that. Wildfires, and there'll be hurricanes. More fires, more hurricanes. The sea level is rising. I keep saying that to you people in WBCK land, La La land. Yeah. So Florida will be more flooded and more underwater, and there'll be saltwater intrusion. If you look up that word in your Funkin' Wagnalls, look up that word, saltwater intrusion. That's for you WBCK listeners or watch. Yeah, you look that up and see how that's going to affect the Florida. And oh God, and the flooding will be even worse than it is now. There'll be lots of high-priced real estate will be underwater. But at any rate, so I think I'll end this exciting, scary edition with Lake Oroville. I think it is, and you tell me is not a problem. Okay.
Here's a view from the right side of the bridge. As you can see how low this line is. Insane. Now the water line usually sits about right about there. It's pretty crazy. I believe it's 140 feet below sea level right now. Now from this angle you can see some tires. It's like an old pipe that got thrown down there. And it looks like some footsteps. Footprints. Someone's been down there recently. And you know, if the water was actually any higher, that could be a nice little beach to hang out at. But the hard part is getting there. Yeah, good luck on that trip down. There is more boat launches that they can't even get their boats out of the water if they wanted to. It's just crazy. I don't imagine anybody living on these boats. They're probably here for the big summers when the water level is higher. Like me personally, I've never been here on a day off and just enjoyed the lake at normal sea levels. But I imagine it's a lot of fun. Like I'm used to going to Lake Tahoe and lakes like that. So this is seeing a lake like this. It's just mind blowing. This is what it used to look like. From this angle, you can see the Bidwell Bar Marina and the Lake Oroville Visitor Center. Now here's an angle from the left side of the bridge. As you can see, it's still just mind blowing. It's just insane to think that this is the boat launch going down to the lake.
Access Vision. Your voice, your community.